Awesome. Okay, so I know we have a few quick preschool promise related updates, and then we'll dive into a discussion on the coordinated enrollment plan deliverable for this year. Have some questions for you all and feedback about how to reach our goals, even as we have a lot of unknowns still about the coming program year. And then any remaining time we have, we'll open up for any peer-to-peer questions or dialogue you wanted to get into. So Crystal, if you want to take it away.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. A couple of updates. We're already past the 20th, so you should have received the Preschool Promise Enrollment Manual yesterday via email with it attached. I have also linked it into the Preschool Promise enrollment documents on the Coordinated Enrollment SharePoint, and we'll be posting a news update for you all to find it easily. The regional selection, just another process template, reminder that it's due on May 6th. And also just continuing supporting under enrolled preschool promise grantees for any that are still needing support. So just coordinating, collaborating with them on what they are needing for full enrollment. And I know that you all are doing your best to try to get full. And of course, most parents probably by now are looking for care for this next program year, but still with the goal of trying to get full enrollment for this program year. And I think that's all I have.
Cool. Any clarifying questions or thoughts there before we dive in? Okay, I'm gonna
ask a question. Sorry, it took me a second to get off mute. Do we have a cutoff date or an end date for when we stop enrolling for this year, or is it up until the very last day for each individual program?
Yeah, I know that this question has been asked before, and as far as I understand, the guidance that we have for Preschool Promise is that we are enrolling on a continual basis. Again, it really will vary program by program when their last day is, and also just kind of I would hope that that information is provided to the family so that they can make an informed decision if they want to enroll for this program year or wait until next program year if they are still eligible.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? I'm gonna give a sec to get off mute. I know that takes a while sometimes. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. I know in cohorts we don't usually have PowerPoints, but I did want to just have a visual to kind of guide where we're going with. So hopefully the PowerPoint part will be brief, but let's go here. Okay, can you all see a presentation? Okay, great. I see some nods from the cameras I can see. I'm gonna hopefully just kind of pop through these slides. So very quickly, as you all remember from our coordinated enrollment implementation plan, we have some kind of we have key activities, and we have both sort of our ideal timelines and then our like getting up to speed onto this year timelines. So one of those is a coordinated enrollment plan. The goals or the roles, which we'll keep talking about, were really to document the step-by-step that process that the communities determined they'll use to work through enrollment activities. We have assumed and heard both from you all and sort of observed that having that information, especially about outreach and recruitment by May, is kind of the natural cycle of things we're working with. However, we pushed parts of this deliverable later, given some delays around preschool promise selection guidance, and also some unknowns about the expansion RFA for preschool promise. So it felt that asking you all to plan for something that you don't have all the information for wouldn't really serve our goals here. So what we have, again, as Crystal was reminding us, the preschool promise selection May 6th, again, whether you're going to move forward with creating a regionally specific selection priorities and process, or if you're choosing to use the next year to plan and allow your systems and things to kind of catch up with our cycle and timeline, knowing that by May 6th. And then a coordinated enrollment plan, the deliverable in the grants, was pushed to June 1st. And today we're going to talk a bit more about what we do with our continued unknowns. So very quickly, other visual, you all convene community partners, parents, providers to create coordinated enrollment plans. Again, when we're fully fleshed out through kind of our three big steps of coordinated enrollment work, that marketing, outreach, and recruitment, eligibility determination, programming, and selection placement. And to spell out a little bit more the kind of role there, again, sort of documenting what you all have agreed to as a community to recruit, determine eligibility, collect information about families' choices or ranked preferences, matching families, and then this coordinated wait list is more kind of how do mid-year vacancies get worked through, using same system, or is there something a little different because typically you've got fewer of those than you might at the beginning of a program year. And then just to state at the bottom, you all may choose that you coordinate across your whole hub region. You might choose a county by county approach, or even a more local level approach. Really just saying you all know the communities and how it best works. And so we want to make sure that whatever we are asking for really lines up with the ways that are going to work best for your families, your partners, and communities there. The ELD role in this is creating template and the minimum activity expectation, which we'll talk about next slide as a phased implementation. Provide individual TA, collaborative TA like this time to complete the planning. Revise and share any program enrollment requirements like the Preschool Promise Enrollment Manual, for example. And then elevate exemplars and share resources around that. And then super clear here, we're not responsible for approving any specific plans, strategies, or activities. So I always like to say, we might hold you accountable for having an outreach and recruitment plan, but we would not be checking like, yes, you can put a billboard here, or like this flyer meets requirements or anything like that. That's far too in the details to be useful from a state level. So as I talk about phase implementation, so we're kind of in the stage of having worked and continuing to work around building local partnerships, structures, kind of setting, visioning, and beginning to work together, as well as a real focus now on community-wide recruitment and referral. Again, you'll see we all submitted a coordinated slot allocation request for how we might what we might want to account for in regionally specific RFA questions, kind of better place slots where families are looking for them in the kind of providers and characteristics of providers that they're looking for. And then this kind of no wrong door approach or interest form application is sort of a planning goal. So how might we move towards having something that creates either like a community-wide interest form or distributes the interest form or something around so that families can complete it wherever they may be amongst your partners. So again, as a reminder for this coming program year, you will still need to use the Preschool Promise application that came out in the enrollment manual yesterday, but that we're sort of trying to move towards that unified application kind of goal in the future. Some more to come there. So as I mentioned, we have obviously the imperfect information, and we're not yet at a place of really having the full information to collect a plan from you all this year. So our goals, sort of given where we are in this process is, first, how can we compile the information about the activities that you are engaged in around coordinated enrollment to be able to tell sort of a statewide picture of where we are, as well as, some regional detail where it comes. We're really focused again in that phased implementation area around community-wide recruitment and referral efforts. So most interested in knowing the statewide picture of recruitment and referral work that you're doing together. And then as always, how can we use this to share examples of your plans, materials, and sort of do some of that promotion of promising practices across the state that we use a lot of this time in cohorts to share as well. So we have here kind of a proposed, proposed set of questions. I don't even want to call it a template because one of the questions is how might we receive this information from you? But what we are interested in or imagining is, first, have you decided to plan for your whole region, a county by county approach or a local level approach, and be clear about what activities, this is plan, but I think what you're working on and how that's broken out regionally. Then which programs are part of this outreach. So, we know Preschool Promise and Head Start OPK are the big ones, but lots of folks, lots of hub regions also working on school district preschool, maybe local efforts, maybe some others we haven't documented or thought of. So just which programs. And then last cohorts, the ones that happened last week, or one that happened last week, also said, we partner with a lot of organizations that don't have programs, but are nonetheless part of our outreach and recruitment. So, so the question is, should we be asking or putting something to say like, hey, we have a lot of outreach partners as well who might not have programs, but we're still connecting families and using them as partners to help us reach more families. And then the very broad, please share either, your plans or activities that you've worked on, again, around coordinating marketing, outreach, or family recruitment. And those are sort of the high level, but kind of wanting to say, if we're in a space of not having full information, we know that you all are still working with partners and you are still doing activities around this delay for Preschool Promise. And so how can we sort of get that statewide picture while hopefully not overburdening you with filling things out in a certain way or kind of stifling what's going on. Those are kind of our big goals. So I have some kind of specific discussion questions about a coordinated enrollment plan deliverable. But before I dive into there, are there any clarifying questions or things that came to mind as I kind of talked through our goals and things?
Can you go, excuse me, sorry. Can you go back up to slide 9 with the minimum and maximum required?
Yes.
Thank you. So I just want to make sure, can you repeat one more time the create no wrong door approach part of it? And just thinking forward to 23, 24, what is the glide path that you see there between it seems like those two are the connected pieces there. And I'm curious just how you guys are thinking about the pathway to a unified eligibility and application process, because that's certainly something that we can do relationship wise and are working on, but there's also levers at the state level that will need to be pulled in order to, I think, fully operationalize that even at a local level. But so I'm just would love to hear kind of thoughts around that.
Absolutely. I think that's definitely going to have to involve like a lot of conversation between what state level requirements are and like what local relationships or like initiatives can help accomplish. So I'm imagining that a part of that, and I'd love to hear where else this works, but I think a part of that is really distilling. We have, for example, a preschool promise application right now. A lot of that is based upon needs around being able to report on certain family information. So instead of having like a static application for preschool promise, might we just at the state level say, these are the types of family information we need to gather, and we're going to need to know about preschool promise when a family is enrolled in preschool promise. But maybe we're not saying like you have to fill out this specific PDF about it. So I think it is going to involve a bit of sort of stepping back away from like a program by program approach in the ways that we have control. And, you know, again, when I think about Head Start, of course, like those are federal Head Start program standards. So when we think about how Head Start might incorporate, we're not going to have the same like levers like we would at preschool promise level. So I think that's where understanding like, you know, from your level with your partners, like what is the like minimum information that everyone needs, or what is useful information for taking that next step towards referring families, or knowing where and conducting eligibility for families where folks might end up enrolling. That I think is going to involve some kind of specific kind of local partnerships and things to help work out. But we are trying to move towards something that looks more like, here's the information we need, not so much the format that we might need it in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, you're articulating some of the things that I think are on my mind already in terms of like using words like unified. Just we are working pretty hard at our local level to have a process that is as simplified for parents as possible. And we know that there are still parents coming through like multiple doors. So, you know, we have a school mint application and families can select a Head Start as their first priority. And if a family does that, then Head Start is following up with that family to continue to complete their application and eligibility process. And I'm trying to envision what that unified process could look like, and all of us to meet our various requirements, because Head Start does have a number of requirements, both on the like application side, but also on the eligibility side. And it's often like you have to defer to that program that has the most strict requirements, right? And so just in terms of like positionality of like our role in coordinated enrollment, I worry about essentially having to to figure out a way to like basically use the Head Start system to do coordinated enrollment. That's what that feels like we're moving towards, because, and not anything against Head Start, but because they do have such, not strict, but I don't know, like
more intensive.
Intensive.
Thank you. I'm like, language is eluding me this morning. But yeah, so I'm trying to just understand what is possible. And again, this is like evolving conversations at a local level too, right? We're constantly trying to improve upon our process so that it is streamlined for parents, and understandable for parents, but also respectful of our requirements. I mean, just yesterday I was going over coordinated enrollment stuff with our governance council, and our superintendent of the ESD was like, so are all the school districts just using your new Schoolment application for their publicly funded spots? And I was like, no. He's like, why not? It would be just so much easier for families. And I was like, sure, you want to have that conversation with them about how they want to use their process for their non-preschool promise spots. And I mean, so we're working with all of these pieces, and it doesn't feel like we've had enough time to lay the groundwork necessarily for maybe a unified interest process. That's where so many of us started. But I think that where I'm getting caught up is this idea of like a unified eligibility and application process, and how that gets done in the context of school district partners who there aren't that many levers currently in place at a state level to, I don't know. Relationship building takes more than like the 2 or 3 years that we've been at to create this unified process. So I'm now talking in circles, so I'm done.
No, I appreciate you saying it. I think you're right. Like, how can we set goals that are truly actionable and also are like part of that systems change work, that aren't just kind of like, I'm thinking back to hub directors, like aren't the pebbles around this, but really get at some of those big boulders around shared vision, mindsets, and things like that do take more than, a year or two to get at. So yeah, I want to make sure as we get into what comes for the future, like we're setting ourselves at a place that is achievable, while also like not losing the thread of like, this is kind of a systems change strategy we're all under. And that takes real time and intention to actually affect systems level change.
And I think sorry, Danny, I saw you unmute. One of the things that might be helpful for me as we move forward in this is seeing examples, if they exist in the state, where it isn't a unified process using Head Start system, because that's not going to be effective in my community at all. It is effective in other places, and I want to be respectful of that, but that's not necessarily what's going to be effective in my communities. So that was the first thing. And then the other thing, on the shared mindset piece, you're right, and that does take time. And I think one of my barriers is when I have one of our Head Start partners who says things like, well, we know better than families. Like that's the actual statement that was said. And our standpoint is, well, families know best for themselves. And that's not pervasive of every single Head Start manager I work with, but that is a specific statement that person said. And that is truly what she believes, is that she knows better for some of these families, not all, but some of these families. So they would be better served in our program. And that's not her call, that's a family's call. So I don't know that that's going to change between this year and next year.
Dorothy, I feel like sometimes you have the same Head Start director that I have, or that like they're siblings or something. I don't know, but that is exactly what I get told all the time, is these families should be here because we can serve them better. And that word just like triggers me every time. It is not my place to tell families where they should be. I will not do that. I absolutely refuse. And so that whole concept of like, these families should be in Head Start because Head Start was meant to serve those families. Okay, but it's not up to me, and it's not up to you, it's up to them. And then I get told, well, parent choice is only mentioned once in preschool promise. So why is it so important? And I'm like, I can't even explain that to you. That is an entirely philosophical conversation of which we will never get on the same page, if that's really what you think. And so we can have the same goals, and I don't know that we're ever getting to this shared mindset place, even with the same goals that all the families have access to all the things they need, because for some Head Start directors, and I have some who are not like this, so I have 3, so that makes my life super fun. Their entire philosophy is that they know what is best for families, and they are what is best for families who are in these specific categories because they have all these services. I'm not saying all those services aren't great, and that families who are in those categories might really need them, but I don't know how we ever get to the place of like, we can agree on these things in a shared mindset in my community.
I'll just add, I know in our area, we have Head Starts who, it's really a fear base where they are scared that they're not going to meet their requirements for enrollment. And that's where it all comes from. And so when that's where they're at, it's hard for them to trust. And it's really hard for them to trust an entity, hubs, who are funded by the ELD, who keeps falling through. Like, I don't mean anything against the ELD, but I mean, look at Preschool Promise RFA. Like how long it took for us to get our contracts. There's so many, how many times have things changed? Or one thing is said and then it's corrected and it's corrected and it's corrected. And it's hard for someone to trust us when we have to keep saying, oh, it's different now. It's different now. It's different now. And so I think that's part of the barrier too, is how are we supposed to build up a collaborative partnership when things change, or when we say the RFA is coming out in October and it comes out and it still hasn't come out yet. I mean, and that's not even necessarily the ELD, but even like manuals and things like that, or when we're like, okay, we have to schedule this meeting with all our community partners and we have 2 weeks to do this work, and then nothing happens with it. And so it's really hard to say, trust us, we're going to do this big coordinated process and we have your back and we are going to do all this work, and then things change. And I think that's scary for them because they don't know if in 3 years, are we still going to be doing it, or is it not going to be there and everything has to start over again?
Yeah, I think you all really point out some big areas around how our system, like broad system, inclusive at the state, is really crying out for some stability and security, and that without that, it's really difficult to move forward on coordination or something, because we've got a big history to overcome, and a lot of fear there. Do I see Dorothy off mute?
Yeah, and I just want to say, like, I actually do believe that working towards a more unified process is the right thing to do, and where we want to go as a system to make it easier for families to not only like know what's available, but also apply through a process that makes sense to them. I mean, I was just articulating yesterday to governance and the week prior to that to our sector committee of like, our timelines are out of sync for selection. And that's an area where we haven't been able to align yet because of the diverse needs, and no one's willing to kind of move on that selection timeframe up to this point. Like, that's still an area of contention we have to work on in our community, and everyone recognizes that, but nothing's changing yet. And that, like, so just using that as an example. So I guess I'm just like, it felt like a big jump from 22-23 to 23-24 to suddenly have that unified process. And I think maybe what I need, what would make me feel more comfortable is a longer glide path. And I don't know what those markers are, but like, what are the markers that we can look for to get us towards a more unified process? Because I think Erin's right. Like, so much of this comes from a fear of not being able to sustain their own requirements, particularly from the Head Start perspective. And why trust an entity that you're not sure might be around or be doing the same kind of process? We have to have enough time to show stability, to build the trust. Like, I think I've come a long way with my Head Start, honestly. We are having much better conversations this year. It has, trust has grown, but I think for me, at least in my community, I think we need a longer time to really get to that place and show not only that we're going to do right by them, but that the system as a whole can be stabilized. We can get to a place that everyone can get what they need, and there is some consistency. So I think maybe that's why this particular slide triggered me a little bit. It's just, it felt like a jump up, and it feels like we need a little bit more, I don't know, markers along the pathway to this fully envisioned unified system.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Dorothy. I can totally see how having some like, what is growth, not just what might success look like, but what does growth look like? Like what might we look out for, or try to like move towards like interim goals and setting things that allow for that time. I want to take that back, because I think there's ways we can maybe like set a bit longer of a glide path towards something that looks real big and unified and things like that, to just kind of make sure that we are creating effective change, not continuing to shake things up. Yeah, I appreciate that. I do want to maybe just go back to our deliverable for this year. So if this is like the questions we're thinking about asking, and I'm gonna flip to the discussion questions just to guide it, but then direct me towards where where you need to see to answer them or to talk about them. So first question is just, are there additional pieces of the work that you're doing around outreach and recruitment that should be asked for or should have a space to talk about? This is the question where, hey, our other outreach partners that aren't program partners, we want to be able to highlight the work we're doing there came from. All right, I'm going to do a quick flip. So when you look at these as kind of guiding or overarching things we want to know about, are there additional pieces that you think important to share or you'd like to share? Or I'll add, because it doesn't have to be additive either. Are there some that give you pause about having to share? Take off or take something down a notch.
I think I would just like to recognize that a lot of like, unless you're giving us a template for a plan, this stuff is not necessarily in like a written form.
Yeah,
So
and that's exactly what I wanted to get at is, thanks for raising that, Danny. I'm gonna, in some ways, like get to the third question here. How do we collect this information? Because, what I don't want to do is set you all on an exercise just for the sake of putting things together in a certain way. Like I kind of want to get at where you're at in, as few barriers as possible to actually the work that's going on and what you are doing. So, some ways I could imagine this happening is like a template that's just like, ask these questions, like text box, have at it. I could also imagine like asking you to just upload things if you have them in a form that's uploadable. Or is there a way we could think about using or compiling what's or reconfiguring what's in the reporting around the activities you're doing as a way to kind of more tie it to what's going on? Very much open, but definitely realize a lot of this isn't like written down in any standard format at this point, because that has not been a requirement.
I would also wonder if there's like a metric we're trying to get to that this is useful to measure. Because that, I feel like that would help me know, like, if there is an actual number that we're trying to get to, like, or, you know, like a number of partners or some sort of metric that would help you put together a template. Or is it really just like, we want to know more specifically what you've been doing every month, and that should really just be another section on the report where, like, these are the things that we did for recruitment this month. And I feel like I put that a little bit in the report because there is a question there
Yeah.
right now. But if really, like, just the qualitative discussion around it is all you need, I don't feel like a template is helpful for that.
I guess I have a question, like, what is the intention of this? Is this for us as like a planning tool so we can like create our vision, or is this just a reporting tool? Because that's, you know, two very different, you know, approaches.
I hear you. Yeah, I think it's intended, and again, this year we're not in the place we want to be about it, but I think it's intended to be, hey, you know, here's, oh gosh, what will now be called our early childhood services assessment. Don't test me on that just yet. But what was the sector plan? Analysis. Thank you, Jane. What was the sector plan? Here is, you know, we've used that to identify priority populations. We are aware of the resources, the services available in community, and now we have, with our partners, determined how we're best going to connect families to, you know, recruit, connect them to the services that best meet their needs, that they're most interested in, and have sort of a coordinating thing. So in this year, like, our goals are really around, like, we know things are happening whether we gave you a template or not. This is the way that you all do work, is you take actions and you bring in partners and are constantly working on this. So what we're really interested in is how can we share the examples of what's happening, and do that in a way that, you know, I on my end can do the work of, like, okay, where are the themes, what's common, and what do we see across the state, while also being able to see those examples and to share them for a next year where we may have very similar questions, but more of a time frame that is like, how are we coming together and planning these, and what does this look like in that kind of hopeful cycle of analysis, planning, and a constant rapid sort of change and activity. So I don't know, that's a long way to say, I don't think this is so much a monitoring tool as it is like a, where are we, you know, where are we when it comes to the activities around coordinated enrollment.
So I wonder, I think one of the things that Danny had said was, can we use the monthly report, just add a section to that? Because that does feel like maybe the appropriate place at this point for it, to capture the activities. It doesn't, like, I mean, what I would love to see is if someone, I'm a very spreadsheet oriented human being, so I would love to see someone, if they had like a, you know, a planning spreadsheet that was like by month and the priority populations and the key activities for each of those months and who the partners are that are engaging in those key activities. If I put together a plan, that's what the kind of plan I would look, that's what my plan would look like. I don't have one of those because I don't have the capacity to take that step back and do that work at this point.
Yeah.
Which is going to be the second part of my question, which is, I'll just make a little plug here, and this is a personal plug. I would love to see the ELD make a request for additional funds for coordinated enrollment from the state for the 23 session, really focused on outreach and recruitment, because I feel like my staff's capacity is really taken up around the process of actually going through the applications and collecting information from families and all of that. And we have less capacity, and this may not be true for everyone, but just based on the funding we get from the state, less capacity to do the outreach and recruitment coordination with partners.
Mm.
So just, I figured I'd put a plug in there since we're talking about it, but I think what we have capacity to report to you guys on right now would be like on a month-to-month basis of these are the kinds of things that are going on, and that we're doing around coordinated outreach and recruitment and marketing.
Got you. So something that maybe like, is a bit more of a like, okay, this point in time, here's where we are, here's a little bit where we're going, but that using the monthly reporting to do that would be favorable to a new separate template.
And if someone has been able to take the step back and create like a more comprehensive plan, would love to see that.
Yeah.
If
So
that
maybe-
exists out there in another hub, would love that to
Yeah.
go on SharePoint, that I could just steal the format and plug things in.
We do have, I think that would be great. So something also, however we do this is gonna, I hear this, like, if there is something to upload, it'd be super awesome to upload and then be able to share on the SharePoint there. I do, I have all these hidden slides, which were my brainstormy kind of things about where we might go with this. But this sample outreach plan template was in the preschool promise enrollment manual and buried in an appendix. But I know was something that was like, hey, here's where you might go, which I'm happy to post again, post in the SharePoint, more on its own like coordinated enrollment thing. But to my knowledge, this was always offered as an example. To my knowledge, I'm not sure if anyone's using this, but it would be interesting to see if there are templates that folks have come across. That we could just share with each other. I think that'd be great. And definitely want to promote sharing actual tools in use, as well as getting something or kind of beefing those up. If there's areas where folks, could use an example or something to tinker with to their own needs and own ends. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. I'm hearing so far a preference towards a reporting section and a place to upload examples and share the examples once uploaded. Let's see. The one area we haven't talked about is this middle question, which is, we know many folks are doing things above and beyond. Some things like selection timing, Dorothy, that you alluded to, which, again, maybe not yet realized, but at least taking plans towards. Would it be helpful, useful to have optional questions around things beyond those minimum activity levels? Again, with the recognition that like, if you're at the outreach and recruitment phase, you're exactly where you should be, where we would expect. But would it be helpful to have a space if you'd like to add additional ones or not, or does that start to get convoluted?
I mean, I don't know if this 100% answers the question. I think having a plan template is really helpful, and obviously having plans is great. Strategic planning is a really important process. But I think a lot of the times the template is just like this thing we fill out because we have to turn it in.
Sure.
And that at this point is not a great use of my time. Also, plans are just that, right? Like they don't always happen. So I like having it in the reporting, specifically like some additional questions, because what we do every single month might be different for recruitment based on what is happening in our community, what is going on as far as events, or how many spots we even have open, or which communities need more outreach than others as we move down the enrollment track. And so even a template, we can have a plan for the year or for the next few years, but I feel like what is actually going to happen every single month is going to be very different just depending on what's going on. And so I think that is what is more useful information.
Mm-hmm. I see. So am I hearing this, like, let's say we're magically in 23, 24, 2023. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. But if we were in a space where we had planning time, we had the information we needed, and we had a plan that came in March, then maybe reporting could be something that's like, hey, tell us what's going on with your plan. But we're not in that space. So for now, let's do the like, tell us the activities you're doing when you're doing them, and really, really like think about the plan as a future, as a future goal. Is that kind of what I'm hearing you say, Danny?
Yeah, and I think, obviously we can fill out templates, but if we really want that to be a tool, it has to be a thing to like refer back to, just like our work plan. Like, how are we doing on this thing that we wanted to do, or what did we do this month that meets that goal that we set for ourselves? And I think that is a much bigger picture template than what we are ready for
Right now.
today.
Yes, I hear you on that. That totally makes sense to me. How does that resonate? I see Dorothy nodding. Does anybody, any difference of opinion too? It's great when we all agree, but it's also great in dialogue. So if there are those.
I think the only thing that I might add is I've been thinking about that, like that middle category of like, what if people, for folks that are maybe doing things above and beyond just marketing outreach, how to capture that. And I think that that's, I think that an optional question isn't a bad idea. I guess I would be curious how many people actually fill it out on a monthly report, or versus just like, I don't know. For me, I'll just be honest. Sometimes when I'm filling out reports, I can't even pull into the report some of the things that are happening, because it's like,
Yeah,
somewhere in this other back part of my mind. And then I turn it in and I'm like, oh crap, that's right, I forgot to add the thing, right? So like, even with the prompt, sometimes it doesn't, I'm not sure how accurate of a capture that would be. And I feel like sometimes these cohort conversations and specific questions and specific topics are where some of that can be elicited a little bit better.
yeah, I feel the same way. I think there is something that is a little easier as things occur in the conversations and the connections that folks are making by talking to each other about it. That, yeah, I can't imagine writing a question that would immediately turn your brain on in the same way. So yeah, maybe there's a space to use some of the meeting time we have, or use the content of the meeting to kind of pull out where things are happening, including check-ins too. That might be a better way of getting at it, than asking monthly questions about above and beyond activities. Gotcha. Yeah.
I think that also goes a little bit back to the question of like, so when we send a report, who's reading it? What is it done? What's done with that information once we give it to you? Because I have it send me emails so that I know what I reported on every month and that I can communicate that information. But how that actually gets used is still very questionable for me. I don't know what is done with that information. And so in some ways, this is more helpful, because if somebody needed new ideas for recruitment or something like that, this would be the place that we would share that more than in the report that nobody else ever sees or gets compiled in any way. And so
Yeah,
that's still a question for me always.
yes, that totally makes sense to me. So, as I read them, and I know Crystal reads them too, but what could we take as like, hey, this is a report out about where folks are, and like these resources or these examples and promising things are happening, across the state. More opportunity to take what we see in reporting and use it to share with you all. That sounds like a very reasonable ask to make. Yeah. Cool. Well, I see we have 5 minutes left. All right, I think what I'm hearing is let's keep talking about the coordinated enrollment goals long term and the glide paths that we need, and that we want to really overcome some of those mindset pieces and create meaningful change. A preference from this group to have monthly activities and places to share examples, and a request to have us at ELD really make those available to everyone. so that we can learn from each other a little bit better. I hear, Dorothy, too, the request for funds around coordinated enrollment. I did hear that, and we'll take that back to our legislative folks. And that really thinking about how to never afraid to ask for more money. Never be afraid of that. That's a good goal. And then it looks like, optional questions might be fine, but really there's areas that we need to, or we could use what we already have in meetings and check-ins and cohort times to really get at sort of what's going on and what's useful to learn out of that might be better than asking a question on a monthly report. Super appreciate the conversation today. Again, trying to make a deliverable that gives us some information and also is a useful resource for a world where we are kind of planning and assessing together. Okay. I will have to take that back, Danny. Are there things about reporting that would support a request for funds? Yeah, I think numbers help a lot sometimes, or aggregates and reports help a lot. I'll take that back into that consideration. And yeah, I think just the space that again creates the least burden that we can in getting information, and then being able to really elevate and share what's going on. That's the space I want to be in, so that as we cycle through next year, we've got some great examples. We've got some folks to talk to, or experts that we might call on and be able to ask more in depth how it's working in their communities and how it could work in yours. So really appreciate the time and thoughts today. We've got 3 minutes. Are there any lingering comments you want to make, or was there something that you came here for? Oh yeah, Dorothy, you waving.
Unrelated to, sorry, this is I just have a question for my peers. If anyone has subcontracted with a community partner to help with recruitment of a prioritized population and have a outlined contract or the way that you've built that proposal, if you can reach out to me, that would be really helpful. It's something that we're going to try doing, and our ECE sector plan was really into that idea of contracting either with a independent contractor, a person in the community, or with a community organization. So I'm just curious if others have done that and how that they've constructed it.
You are allowed to subgrant within your grants. And if you need help or you want to talk about it further, feel free to reach out to me about that. And I will, Dorothy, also make that ask in other cohorts too.
Thank you. And we're specifically the outreach recruitment side of it. We're going to continue to do the eligibility verification pieces in-house. It's more helping families know what's available, how to apply, maybe walking them through the application process, answering questions, that kind of stuff. And yeah.
Cool. So specific outreach, it sounds like particular priority population. Make that, I'll keep my ear to the ground as well. But if folks have stuff to send to Dorothy, feel free. Get away. All right, thank you all. So following, we have one more cohort this afternoon, following their feedback discussion along the coordinated enrollment plan stuff. You'll see an update how we'll be capturing this information and sharing it back out with your feedback on doing that in a way that makes sense for where you're at. Yeah, that's it. Thanks so much. And as always, don't hesitate to reach out to me or Crystal, depending on your needs. Take care. Have a great rest of your day.